Today I'm going to be working on this Hamilton 950 grade pocket watch. And according to the pocket watch database, this pocket watch was manufactured in 1919 and it's a 23 jewel pocket watch. And this was the highest grade pocket watch that Hamilton produced at that time until the 950B came along to replace it. Now this pocket watch is a pendant set watch, which means that you pull the crown out on the case to set the time. And it has a little bit of broken dial, and I'm going to be replacing the dial too. I bought a new one for it. So anyways, the pocket watch has a broken balance staff. And I'll be replacing the balance staff, taking the watch apart and cleaning it, putting it back together again. The watch still wants to run even though it has a broken balance staff. It'll run with the dial down, but if you turn it with the dial facing up, it'll stop running. So let's go ahead and take the dial off and start taking this watch apart. There's 3 screws that hold the dial to the watch, and we loosen those 3 screws and pull this dial off. Now we're going to take our hour wheel off, and next we'll be taking our minute wheel off. Now once I get this wheel removed, I'm going to remove the cannon pinion. And I'm going to use a special tool that I have for that. It's a cannon pinion remover tool. And I like using it because it doesn't put any stress on the center wheel as I'm trying to remove that cannon pinion. Sometimes if you use tweezers or something to pull it up, you take a chance of breaking that jewel that is around the center wheel. So this tool works really well. You can get it on eBay. That's where I got mine. Now we want to release the tension on the mainspring. What I do is just take a piece of pegwood and push the click out of the way and take my bench tool and use it to unwind the mainspring. Just slowly let it unwind itself. By releasing that tension on the mainspring, I don't have any chance of damaging my parts on the watch when I start taking it apart. The next thing we always do is take your balance off first. And you want to be really careful handling the balance and your hairspring and all that, because that's one of the most delicate parts of your watch. And if you take that apart and damage it, you're really going to have a hard time repairing your watch. Now, I always like to set my balance on a piece of pith wood. It's a really soft and spongy type of wood, and that way you don't take any chance of further damaging my hairspring or my balance. Now there's 2 screws that I need to unloosen to be able to remove my balance from this bridge. Now once I have my balance off, I can inspect it and I can see that one of the pivots is broken off on the top part of the balance staff. Another thing I'm going to do is retighten these 2 screws that hold the balance back to the balance bridge so I don't lose those. So now I can start taking my movement apart. First thing I want to remove is the winding wheel. Now this winding wheel is different from some other movements. It has a center jewel that helps reduce the friction from the winding wheel. It has 3 screws that you have to remove, and they're very small screws, so you be careful and don't lose those. The next thing I want to remove is my ratchet wheel. And this screw that holds the ratchet wheel down turns clockwise, which is usually backwards from how you normally would remove a screw. So you want to be aware of something like that. Some watches turn clockwise, some turn counterclockwise. So you just have to carefully try to determine which way your screw's going to turn. Well, now I'm just going to remove the screws that hold down the bridges of these parts. It's been a long time since this watch has probably been serviced. I don't even know the service history on it. So it's probably due for a good cleaning. It's not really dirty though. I've seen a lot dirtier watches. This one was well taken care of. There's little slots that are provided on the side of the bridges so you can slide your screwdriver under there and do a little prying up on it without damaging anything. Now here's that jewel that was on the mainspring barrel. You want to be very careful and when you handle this and not crack it. I've seen a lot of them that have been cracked. Well, next thing I'm going to do is remove the bridge from the center wheel. Get that out of the way. And remove my center wheel. Now these wheels are gold. That's how high grade this watch was. They used gold for these wheels. Now I'm going to remove the last bridge of the movement. And I can tell it's been a while since this one has been cleaned. That wheel is stuck onto that bridge from the old oil that's dried up on it. Even the pallet was stuck to the pallet bridge from that dried up oil. The first thing I do when I take my watches apart before cleaning, I'll take and soak the part in IPA alcohol and take these cotton swabs and clean out all of the dirt that I can get out just by pre-cleaning that way. It'll make a big difference in the way your watches are cleaned and turn out. So this part was stuck on a little bit from the old oil too, this wheel, and I finally got it apart. Now this is the barrel with the mainspring in it, and the way to get this one apart, I had to hold the ratchet wheel and turn the mainspring barrel and kind of unwind it to separate it from the ratchet wheel. That was the only way I found to take it apart. You just turn it counterclockwise, and it eventually it unscrews and you can get it apart that way. Now I couldn't figure out how to get that ratchet wheel separated from that bridge. It looked kind of like it was pressed in there, and I didn't want to force anything and break it, so I just left it together like that and put it through the cleaner and dried it and put oil around it when I put it back together the best I could. I didn't want to take a chance of breaking it. I saw on when I was doing some research on how to take it apart where somebody had broken theirs trying to take it apart, so I just left it together as it was. But I did take the mainspring out of the mainspring barrel, cleaned the mainspring up and put it back in. The mainspring looked like it had recently been replaced, so I didn't need to replace it. I just cleaned it and oiled it back up and put it back in the mainspring barrel. And again, I'm just using the IP alcohol with those Q-tips. They're called nail teas, and I got those on Amazon. And they work really well. They don't have a lot of fuzz on them like a normal Q-tip did. So I use that IPA alcohol, do my pre-cleaning, and I'm not going to show the whole cleaning of the watch parts in my ultrasonic cleaner and all. I'm just going to show the pre-cleaning and putting it all back together again. I made a couple of videos on process of cleaning, and I go into great detail on cleaning and oiling, and you can subscribe to my channel and go through my playlist, and you can see that it's another Hamilton watch that I took the time to take apart and go into great detail on how to oil it, how to clean it. And so this was just going to be a video of pre-cleaning and putting it back together, and hopefully fixing that broken balance staff. Now, I've already cleaned all my parts. I ran them through my ultrasonic cleaner. Here I'm just oiling the jewels so I can put the jewels back in. Put a little drop of oil on the cap jewel and set the bottom jewel on top of it, and then I take that, pick it up, and drop it back into the hole that it belongs to, and put the two screws, the hold down screws, back in, and tighten everything down. Well, now we're going to start putting it all back together. First thing I always put in is the palette. And next thing, we put our pallet bridge back on and the two screws that hold it down. Now you want to be very careful and make sure you have both of your pallet pivots lined up in the jewel holes before you tighten down your pallet bridge, because those are very delicate and you take a chance of snapping those off. So be very careful, test it, and make sure that everything's in line before you go and tighten down those two screws to hold that down. And next goes in the escape wheel. The next one we put in is our fourth wheel, or the wheel that your second hand goes on. And the next one is the third wheel. And the last one is our center wheel. Well, now that we got all our wheels in, now we can start putting our bridges on. You want to be very careful when you put your bridges back on that your pivots are going through the jewel holes and are all lined up before you tighten any of your screws down. You can look at the jewels and you can see the silver steel poking through there, and that way you can tell that your wheels and your pivots and your jewels are all in line before you tighten it down. I just use a piece of pegwood to help hold it down, to put a little pressure in, so when I drop my screws in it doesn't shift on me. But be very careful before you tighten anything down that all your pivots are in line with your jewel holes, because if they're not in line, you take a chance of either cracking a jewel or snapping the end of that pivot off. Now I had to remove my center wheel again to make room to get all that other parts put back together. So now we put our center wheel back in and put that center bridge on and get everything lined up for it, and drop those screws in and make sure everything's in line. Our pivots are poking through the jewel holes, and go ahead and tighten it down. Now to put that barrel and the mainspring back together, you just do it in reverse of the way that you took it apart, and slide it into the arbor and give it a few twists, put a little pressure against it, hold that ratchet wheel so it doesn't turn, and it'll, with a little finagling, it'll come together for you. It was not a fun thing to do, but it got put back together like it should. Well, once it all got put back together, it easily slid right in and didn't have any trouble lining it up, and so everything worked out good on it. Well, the next thing I want to do is put that jewel back on the mainspring barrel on the ratchet wheel, and it has those 3 tiny little screws that you have to line the holes up very carefully. And I've seen a lot of these with mismatched screws because the screws are so tiny and they'll go flying and you never see them again, and so you'll have to find another replacement screw for it. So what I do is I take a little needle and stick it in one of the screw holes to help keep everything aligned, so when I'm putting my screws back in, I don't have that jewel shifting around on me. It helps keep everything aligned, makes the job a lot easier. Now I just removed that little needles because I got a screw in there now to keep that jewel in place. Now we put our winding wheel on and put the screw that holds it in. So remember that screw, when you took it out, it has reverse threads on it, so it comes out different than you normally would. So be aware of that when you go back to install it. Well, now it's time to remove that broken balance staff from the balance. Well, the first thing I need to do is get my a hole aligned with my staking tool set, and we'll use the center punch, and that way my hole will be in line, so I can use my special stump that I'll be using to remove the roller table off that balance. Now, I made a whole video series on the staking tool set and how to use it and what types of stumps and punches that you use. So if you subscribe to my channel, you'll be able to see all the ones that I use and what they're used for. Now I'm going to be using this special stake to help remove that roller table. It has a hole in it in case the tip of your balance staff breaks off in it, and you can remove it without having any difficulty. And I'll be using my 3-ounce brass hammer, and you just gently tap down on onto the staff, and that roller table, I'm sorry, will pop right off. And here we have our balance with our roller tables removed. This one has what's called a double roller, a safety roller on it, so comes off in 2 pieces. And next we're going to be working on removing our broken balance staff from our balance. And again, I use my center punch to line up the hole and get everything perfectly in alignment, so I can use my tool that I'm going to be using to remove that balance staff. I just find the hole that balance staff seats in, use that centering punch, and I lock down that ring so it doesn't move. Now this is the tool that I'll be using to remove my balance staff from my balance. It's a 2-piece tool, and you use it comes with a punch, a special punch that comes with it. Alright, I double check again to make sure everything's lined up, and then I put my balance staff removing tool onto the staking set. And once you put it on there and get it lined up, you turn it and it'll tighten down on it. It's like a vise. You can get it really tight on there, as tight as you can get it. Then you take it, I take my hammer, a few little taps. Not very hard, just a few light taps. It doesn't take a whole lot to remove it. And there we have our balance staff. It has been removed from our balance. That was a riveted in balance staff. And that's tool is to remove a riveted balance staff. There's a different method to do a friction staff. I think I made a video on that too. And there we have our balance with the balance staff removed. There's just a hole in the center, and we'll have to put our new balance staff in that hole. Well, this video ended up going to be a two-part series. The person I ordered the staff from sent me the wrong staff, and I had to contact him, and he's going to send me a different one. The one on the right is the correct one. The one on the left is the one he sent me, and it's pretty obvious that they're different staffs. So I'll be finishing up on my next video of assembling and installing the balance staff and getting this watch back together.